Hey everybody, welcome back. So I've been making some videos. It's really weird because I started off making travel videos because I used to travel a lot. And now, oh, darn, I got food in my mouth still. There we go. That's annoying. That's never happened to me before. Got a little oatmeal right up in there. Anyway, so I used to make videos on travel a lot, and now nobody's traveling. So then I started making videos on the risk to us as we travel with the coronavirus, aka the COVID-19 virus, aka the Wu flu. I'm going with Wu flu because that just sounds, it's easier to say, easier to remember, and it's actually descriptive of where it came from, like every other virus that we name. It's kind of ironic. Sorry, I have to go off on a tangent here a little bit. It's kind of ironic that there's organizations like the WHO that spent, I don't know how long, I'm guessing weeks, trying to figure out what to call this, some special name that doesn't match any of the other names, any other naming patterns that we have for viruses. Yet they couldn't say it was a pandemic for weeks after it actually was. So anyway, sorry, I digress. So yeah, so I've been making these videos on the coronavirus, on the Wu flu, whatever we're going to call it today. And so I'm doing that more and more, and that's really all my content at this point. But people seem to want more information on that, so I'm happy to provide whatever I can to help anybody else. So hopefully this is helpful. Let's get into it then. So this is day 7 for me of working from home, being at home, really just having that social distancing and trying to just not go out and not catch it or spread it or that sort of stuff, right? If I do get infected. And so day 7, so far so good. I mean, we have a fair bit of food here. I'm noticing that I'm going through the food kind of quickly though. So, yesterday we had 3 dishes for food, and that was a lot of food for 4 or 5 of us. And so that was, I'm kind of thinking, well, maybe we should slow down a little bit on the food. I might go out today and get some ground meat, and thinking about that. But I don't really want to go out, but I might. So we'll see how that goes. But anyway, I'm making these videos, and someone said to me, "Hey Rob, why don't you make a video on what we can do as a community to prepare for this and help each other? I mean, all your videos are kind of a little bit doom and gloom, Rob. So maybe you should make something more positive." And I agree, that's a great idea. So it made me start to think about my childhood and where I grew up. So I grew up on a very small island, Quadra Island, and it's about 3,000 people, very isolated. And this was, during let's say the 80s, late 70s, 80s. And at that time, you can imagine, the community. So very, very tight-knit community. Even though there wasn't a lot of us, there was a lot of people had moved there. And this is the country, right? It's the backwoods on this small island. And so you go there, you buy a plot of land, move there. It's kind of like the pioneers, right? And there's nothing, just woods. And for us, we had a little oceanfront area in this harbor, which was great. But we had to dynamite the stumps, cut them down, dynamite them out, get in a tractor, tractor them out, and basically level the ground, build a house, and really just survive out of tents or trailers or whatever we could for the time that it took us to build some sort of establishment. And so it wasn't unusual to see people living out of tents, in really cold and wet conditions, but it was no problem at all, right? We worked as a group together. If you had any issues as a family, you walk down the street and you talk to the family next door, and they would rush over and help you out. I remember when we were first building our house, putting the framing up, I have pictures of 20 or 40 people hand pushing the framing up so that we could pin it together. And I'm thinking to myself now as an adult, where did all these people come from, right? Did we pay all those people? Nope, no, we didn't pay any of those people anything. Well, I think we gave out beers probably at the end of the day, and we all celebrated our effort. But everybody's house was built that way, right? We just went around and helped everybody, and nobody was getting paid for that. It was really just, hey, I want to get my house built before winter. Do you have a few days to help me get this done? And that's what happened. So, and even now when you go there, I think it's less of a sense of community than it was back then, of course, because back then I think we just operated more that way, right? And now it's different. But so now with this virus moving in, it makes me remember those days, right? Where we had to act as a community, we had to act as a group. It was really about survival. I think if you go to a lot of remote places like Alaska, you're going to see more of that still. And there's still some remnants of it in the city, but not much, right? We're all kind of very paranoid of and worried about what other people are doing, and if they're going to try to sell us something, or rip off something, or things like that. So we're always on our guard in the city, right? So as we quarantine, as we bunker down for this, right, and look at the risks and things like that within our city, within our community, especially our street, right? I think what we want to do is, if we can, utilize that sense of community, right? We look at the social distancing, the self-isolation, even the quarantine, all these concepts to cocoon ourselves into our houses, and that's good. I think that's what we want to do to combat this virus. Of course, we want to slow it down for the first responders, right? However, we're going to have problems in our house. We're going to have medical issues. We're going to have food issues. We're going to have mechanical issues. Things are going to break in your house. What if your furnace breaks? All these things, right, that we have to kind of watch out for. And who's going to help you with that, right? So the first responders are going to be busy. So they may not be able to help you in a timely fashion. If you call a plumber, a lot of those people are either going to be sick, or they're not going to be able to come out. They're going to be nervous about coming into your house. So for us, we have had friends come over before and help us with things like the water tank and things like that, which was great. Now, of course, everybody's going to be nervous about that. So some things you can do is say, hey, I'm going to just be upstairs, and I'm not going to come down. If you're going to help me out, if you're going to pay them, leave some cash in an envelope or whatever it is, or just direct transfer to their bank account so they don't have to touch anything. But be mindful of the risk that they're taking, and appreciate what they're doing for you, right? Because they have friends and family too that they want to protect. So I think getting to know your neighbors, if we can, if you haven't already, is a good idea. There's some apps out there as well, which I've checked out, and they're kind of these neighborhood apps where you can sign up, and then you get updates online from other people in your neighborhood. And I have always shied away from those because, for the most part, in the city, I'm not a big fan of many of my neighbors. I don't live in a great part of town, and so it's more frustration than anything else. But maybe that's just me. It's probably just me. But I think that if you find one of those apps, and if your neighbor's on those apps, it saves you knocking on doors, because nobody wants to answer the door right now either, right? So check that out. Take a look. Some of them are quite active. So I signed up for one, and I'm getting emails every day, and they're talking about, oh, there's a bear in the neighborhood, because I live, in a more rural area. There's a bear. Watch out. Make sure your garbages are locked down. And oh, we saw somebody on the street looking in cars, so make sure your cars are locked. So there's some good things on those apps, right? That's the kind of threat intel that I want to get. So that's pretty good. So I think that we need to start doing that more and more as we progress with this. Think of this as a 1-year project, right? Because I think that's 6 months to 1 year, I think, is what we're kind of looking at as this kind of first stage. And we'll know a lot more in 6 months. But getting to know your neighbors, building that sense of community, even if you're the first one, even if your neighborhood, nobody talks to anybody, nobody does anything. What if and let's say you have a mailbox down the street that everybody goes to. I don't know if yours is set up that way, but mine is. You could put a little note on there that says, hey, this is my email address. If you have any concerns, or you need some food or medicine, let me know. And if I have, surplus medicine, maybe like Tylenol or something like that, then let me know, and I'll put some in your driveway for you to pick up, and then I'll email you, like things like that, right? I've got, a wheelbarrow full of carrots. If anybody wants to trade some of those for potatoes, right? Set up a bit of a barter system. You can now, once you've got that community group, you can start to trade supplies and work with each other. If you run out of toilet paper, for example, I bet you one of your neighbors has a garage full of toilet paper, right? So that's pretty good. So just working together as a group is going to allow you to help each other out so much better. If, a 10-person group as opposed to a 2-person group, the 10-person group has all these benefits, right? That is, I don't want to go through all of them, but just imagine the knowledge alone, right? So one of those persons probably has some first aid knowledge, which could really help. So Once you get sick, let's say you have some complications, or you cut your hand, or you break a bone, and somebody's a nurse in your neighborhood. Well, wow, right? I know a nurse that, I text the person quite a bit, and I always ask them for recommendations and stuff, and it's really quick. And that's a huge resource to have, right? Maybe somebody else works in government, and they can give you updates on what's going on. That's more insightful, let's say, than the drama we see on the news. So that's another thing, right? So just that alone, that's one concept, and the knowledge in a group, right? Sharing supplies was another big one for me, right? Because you always forget something, and everybody does. So maybe you can share supplies a little bit, or trade. The other thing is kind of protecting each other too, right? So if there was ever to be a problem where, let's say, people driving in your neighborhood looking for resources to steal, and when we see that even without this virus, right? If you leave your garage door open, people pop in and rip stuff off sometimes, but the neighbor across the road has visibility of inside your garage, so they could be alerting you to things like that. So having that relationship with your neighbors definitely, I think, is good. Sharing information, not only sharing information, but also having a sort of an alerting system, I think, is helpful, right? So when people see something suspicious, they can report it, and now you know what to look for. So that person that's walking suspiciously up and down the street, and they have a blue baseball cap on, now as soon as you see that person with the blue baseball cap, you're going to be like, okay, is that the person that's might be doing something? So I think that's super helpful as well. If we move into, kind of a martial law type of thing, where, it becomes even more serious, having that team, having that sense of community, what you can do then is you can say, okay, let's start to have some roles here. So maybe one person collects the news, maybe one person talks about supplies or does supplies, maybe one person's first aid. For a first responder group that I'm in, what we always do when we go out is we have certain roles. So one person will be on communications, one person will be a team leader, one person will be the first aid lead. And so before we move into a situation, we kind of already know what we're going to be responsible for. And that allows us to perform much better, right? Rather than getting there and figuring out, okay, what am I going to do? So having some role assignment, I think, it could be something that could come out of that, right? And besides all those kind of very obvious benefits of having that sense of community and that group, I think that the sense of, the tribe, right? I guess that's the word that comes to mind a lot, is this feeling of I'm part of a tribe or a community. I'm part of something, right? That's bigger than me. I'm part of a team. And maybe that's a good word, team, right? I'm not alone in this. So that's one of the things that I see quite a bit for us in right now, is we're all bunkering down. We're all doing this self-isolation. We're all trying to limit ourselves to our own houses or wherever you are. And I think it's very easy for people to, especially our seniors out there, right? If they're living alone, that's going to be tough, right? They want to go out. That's their whole thing right now, is going out and seeing their friends. And my mom, she likes to go bowling, she likes to go dancing. To tell her not to do that, it's really hard, right? She knows the risk, but she may still go out just because she needs that stimulation. And I think we all do. It's not just limited to them, but we're social beings, right? So we all want to have that interaction. And yeah, you can do that a little bit online, but it's not quite the same as going out for a beer with your buddies at the pub, right? So having that sense of tribe, of team, of community, of knowing, okay, I know these 10 neighbors and we're all in it together, that allows you to make sure you don't feel like you're in this alone. So if you have a family, I think that helps a little bit. If you're living by yourself, I think this could really help you. So if you're in a condo, if you're in an apartment, it could be your floor, right? It could be that whole floor, and you guys could have a bulletin board system. You could trade emails. You could do a number of things. It might expand. It might be your whole building. It might be the buildings across the street. That's even better, because then you have visibility of down the street. You can say, okay, what's going on? So if you can grow it a little bit, I think that, especially for different viewpoints, I think that's helpful as well, right? Because for me, I want visibility. I want to be able to see what's going on, and that's very helpful. So yeah, so that's kind of where I want to go with that. Is it's not all doom and gloom. I think there's a lot of opportunities in what we're seeing right now. Yes, there will be bad things that come out of this, but I think if we can begin to get back to our roots, which, when I was growing up, was that sense of community, was I know who my neighbors are. Maybe they're not all my favorite people. Maybe I have huge differences with them, right? That could be, culture, religion, political views, any of these things that make us different. Yes, we're all different. Yes, we have different views. You may not agree with any of them. You may be the exact opposite of your neighbor. But in times like this, I think it's important to think about, does that really matter too much, right? So if you have different political views, that's your right? You're allowed to do that. That's what makes us great, right? Is the ability to have different views, the freedom, right? I mean, that's what it's all about. So we have to, I think, look past our disagreements, especially our small ones, and focus on the task at hand, right? And that task at hand is to protect our elderly, right? And protect all of us, right? But the elderly is what's at risk here. So acting as a team to, share knowledge and support each other, I think is going to be really beneficial. So there's that. Yeah, so I'm going to wrap up with that. The last thing I have is, this is day 7. I talked about that of my quarantine or self-isolation. I'm not actually quarantined, but self-isolation. So I had a search and rescue call yesterday that I went out on. It was on the river, and it was there was a boat that overturned, so there were some fatalities, but some people survived. And I went out on the river in our boat for the SAR team and helped with that operation. So during that time, of course, you're on the river, there's 6-foot swells, and it's super windy. And of course, you have some PPE on, but not everybody's wearing a face mask, of course. It's because you're just trying to hold onto the boat and stuff like that. So I think I had some exposure, obviously, during that. And it was kind of, I was on the fence there, right? Do I go out or not? Because I knew there would be a little bit of exposure for me if I did. But that was one of the few times where I said, yeah, I'm going to go out, right? Because as first responders, I think it's important that we try to support everybody else, especially in a situation like that, right? Which was life and death. And so some people survived that incident. 3 people, I think, went to the hospital. Of course, some didn't, which is very sad. But I think we're going to see more and more of that, where our first responders are doing that calculation in their head. Do I have an adequate level of protection? What are the odds of me getting infected? What's that going to mean to my friends and family? So that's just something else to think about. I think as we move into this, as it gets more busy, we're going to see more of that. As a first responder, I was thinking, okay, if I get it now is better than later. Far in the future is even better than now, because there's going to be more different ways to help patients. Maybe not a vaccine, but there's going to be different measures and medicines and things like that to help you get through it. So I may have got infected yesterday. Hope I didn't, but I may have. But I think it's probably worth it. So that was my quick calculation. So that's it for today. I'm going to leave you with that. I'm working on a Paris video where I want to share with you very quickly my trip to Paris last year, all the places to go there, and what to watch out for as far as transportation, accommodations, what to take with you, and all those things. I think that's going to be the next big video that I put out as far as a destination video. If you like these videos, please let me know with comments, with subscribe down below. Yeah, I don't really market that too much, but I'm trying to deliver what everybody wants to see as far as travel. Lately, it's just been the Wuhan flu, and or Wu flu, I call it now. But yeah, whatever you guys want, let me know. Otherwise, stay safe and have a good one. See you later.